I wrote the book because it was part of my own healing journey. Several years ago, as you know, I lost my home in a gas fire and explosion, and my dear friend and neighbor next door passed away. And it was a profound loss for myself and the community. Myself and my family, we lost our home and all our material possessions, and then on top of that, we faced a 7-year battle with insurance companies and an oil and gas company.
Oh.
So for me, the book was a very personal way of healing. It started out as sticky notes that I would write to myself as sources of inspiration and self-healing, and I decided at some point to compile it into a book that I hope others will find useful.
Sticky notes. And what would you put on the sticky notes?
Well, I would put all sorts of things, and it was, I'll share with you exactly how this happened. We literally lost everything. In fact, I watched my house burn down while I was standing on the street.
Oh.
And that same day, later that day, a neighbor of mine gave me a pad of pink sticky notes and a pen.
Okay.
She said, "Here, Tina, you're going to need this."
Oh, wow.
And I took this from her. Those Post-it notes. They were this bright pink color, and she gave me a beautiful yellow pen. And she said, "Here you go, Tina." And I literally had nothing. So I took this from her, and I put them in my pocket. And I still have some of those pink notes left in my office. And I started writing just little things that I had to do, like ask for diapers, get formula. I was nursing my baby at the time, and we needed all these sort of miscellaneous things that you need in everyday life. So they were just sticky notes that I started using everywhere, writing them down here and there for needs. And then it kind of evolved over time into self-statements, little points of inspiration. I lost all my books. I love my books, and
I do too.
Quotes, ideas, I would write those down. My favorite quotes, I'd jot those down and put them up everywhere so I could see, just for a little boost, a point of inspiration, hope. So
hope.
I would put them sometimes on the bathroom mirror in the morning, on the fridge, in my car, on my dashboard, anywhere.
Wow.
And so I collected those over time, and I edited those, and I thought I would use those in the form of a book.
Into the book.
So I shared with you just now, I love my books. I've always been a bit of a nerd, a bit of a geek. I've been a bookworm. And so one day I'd gone to buy glasses, all the kinds of, again, the miscellaneous things that we use in our everyday life. So I had to buy drinking glasses, and I parked my car on the street, and I was walking along the street, and in front of this beautiful Victorian row house, there were a stack of books. Somebody had put out a cardboard box of books and a note on the box saying, "Take me. Help yourself."
Yeah,
actually,
yeah,
that's
I've
what
seen
the note on the box was, "Help yourself." And so I was walking along, and there were two things that struck me about that walk. One was the note, "Help yourself," and somehow it stamped itself on my brain, "Help yourself."
Okay.
And I just thought, I've got to start helping myself. Of course, I picked up the box of books because I love books. I missed my books. And in that box of books, there were a few really interesting books.
Yeah.
One of the books in that pile that someone was giving away was Frances May's book, Under the Tuscan Sun.
Oh, I love
and
that.
So that was actually, I'd lost all my academic books and novels that I loved, and books that friends had given me. Anyway, I read Frances May's book, Under the Tuscan Sun, and I got it in my head that I had to go to Italy, that I had to go sit under the sun and experience Italy for myself. I'd never been to Italy before.
Yes.
And so it was the craziest thing to do because we didn't have a permanent home. We had 4 little kids. We had expenses coming out of our ears. My husband was diagnosed with cancer. Yeah. And I got it in my head that I had to go to Italy. And this is where
I understand that totally, actually.
So we went to Italy. And we went to Italy. And, for me, it was a clean slate. And I do love Italy, but it's the concept of what Italy came to represent for me. And what Frances May's book really was all about, that the sun is a divine source in our life, so that there is a sun in our life, wherever that sun may be.
Right.
In her case, it was, in Tuscany, but the sun as a divine source and representative of our desire.
Mm-hmm.
And so the book really reminded me to stay in touch with my life force, my desire. Because I lost everything. I was in a really awful spot, and I was depressed.
Mm-hmm.
I probably, if I went to see a psychiatrist or a shrink, probably they would have, said, well, you've got post-traumatic stress disorder, or you've got this, or you've got that. And, of course, I did re-enter therapy at that time, too. That's a separate discussion. But Italy became a passion of mine, and for me it was a clean slate where I went and I really took to the food and the culture, the architecture. Those were all things that I really loved.
And it is funny because Italy, of all the places, I've been to Italy. I adore Italy. I'm from Italy. So there's a warmth. And the people are very accepting on top of all that. You know what I mean? That culture is you chose a place which is very accepting and warm and traditional and carried up all the traditions and the family.
Absolutely.
And I think that is another reason why.
Absolutely. For me, it took on an added meaning because it was a clean slate. I mean, I was known for my work in Toronto. I had a certain reputation in my community. I was a leader. I was an organizer, and in many ways I felt my sense of self had been knocked over and changed, and I lost my identity, and parts of my reputation I felt, or my social standing in my community. And so for me to go to Italy, I really felt it was a clean slate where no one knew me by my title or profession. I had a fresh beginning. And so I got to make friends there who didn't know me with my past, the good stuff and maybe not so good stuff, and all the hardship and difficulties I was experiencing. So for me, it was a fresh start, or marked that in my life. And that's how I came to have a deep love for Italy, and I formed very strong friendships and connections there with people.
How fabulous.
And I got to discover other parts of myself.
Yes.
So that was very meaningful for me.
And so now you bring that to other people.
I do, and I think as it is for all of us to find meaning and purposeful, vital engagement in life.
Yes.
And that was what that process represented to me, amidst all of the turmoil and trouble and trauma and, all the mess that my life had become. And it was a spectacle,
All right, so Tina, with everything that we've gone through in your lives, and all the trauma and finding yourself, one of the first questions I want to ask you is, how do you define happiness? And how do we keep happiness? How do we develop happiness in our lives? All those happiness in general. And you have been doing the learning. You found ways to do some healing, although it's an ongoing process, I know. But could you give us a little insight on this word happiness?
It's such a great question, and it's such a broad question.
It is.
I can only share with you my personal experience and my professional experience.
Good.
And to that I would say, after the loss of my house, this was a fundamental question that I had to be able to answer for myself as a human being, and also as a psychiatrist.
Yes, of course.
One of the really funny things about becoming a psychiatrist in the traditional path of therapy is that we actually don't learn very much about meaning, happiness, love, engagement.
Really?
Really, yes. And that was one of the things, because, I'm considered to be a psychotherapy expert. And So I really had to dig really, really deep and ask myself those questions. And I took it on as my own learning to understand what is happiness, what's contentment, what's satisfaction, what's engagement. So to answer, to come back to your question, it's, you ask 5 people, you'll get 5 different answers, but it's on a spectrum.
Right.
And what I would say is what I'm coming to realize, it's a state of being. It's a way of being. It's not just a state, but it's a way of being. Some of it is genetic, and some of it is what we do to ourselves.
I agree.
And again, the numbers are controversial, again, depending on who you talk to, but we do have a fair bit of control over how we're going to choose to be.
Yes, we do.
And that's one thing I feel very, very firmly about now, is that we do have a lot of control, and we can make choices such that it tips us over into that state of feeling good.
Exactly.
And happiness is such, it's a culturally determined concept as well.
It can be,
Americans, for instance, I have.
She says as a Canadian.
I do. One of my things is those happy faces, those yellow smiley faces.
We have them everywhere.
Yeah, Americans do. And
we do.
And I always say, you can never tell what people are thinking and feeling behind those yellow smiley faces.
The mask.
But because it's culturally dependent too. So Americans are very effusive, and there's a culturally defined version of what an American person would consider to be happy.
That's true.
Whereas, say, in an Asian person, it would be a much more quiet, gentle, harmonious
serene
feeling. So what we might call happiness or contentment or satisfaction, sort of along that same theme. The theme is where you feel, it's unmistakable. You feel good in your mind and your body. You feel at ease.
Yes.
You feel good.
Yes, you feel good.
Yeah, you have that psychophysiology of feeling in a certain satisfied way.
Satisfied.
So I like the word satisfied.
Content. And yes, and not just content though. It's for me, happiness is not just contentment, but it's a peace, it's a knowing, and it's always filled with wonder. That to me is happiness.
Yes. And it's a deep satisfaction.
It's very deep.
And it's unmistakable. And we might use different words depending on where we're coming from to describe that state, but you know it when you experience it.
It's funny because people always say to me, because to me my work is fun. Okay, to learn is fun. What I find fun is to learn something new, to pick up one of my books and read, or to and the same is with you. I know that. But they think, well, you're not having fun. Well, yes, I am. Because it provides me with that knowing and that wonder. Or just sitting out by the pond. I have a pond, and watching the sunset. I was telling you about that.
Yes.
That fills me with such joy.
Yes.
That
so
to
you've
me is
used
fun.
those words, joy, gratitude, awe, inspiration. So those two are different aspects of love.
Yes, it is.
Of well-being.
Well-being.
Well-being. And really I would say that well-being is a form of love.
Oh,
or
it is.
self-love.
It is. Exactly. I think that is the ultimate. When people say I'm not happy, and that it's so funny that you said that the profession doesn't really study that, and yet the first thing I hear from people is I'm not happy.
Yes. And we can think of the state of not being happy or not being content in different languaging too. We could think of the state of unlove, or the mood of unlove, or the mood of grievance.
Yes.
A state of grievance. We know what that feels like too. And we can feel it in our body.
Right. Always.
You can feel it in the body, and that's where the mind-body makes that disconnect. And then when desire comes in, and we feel that too.
Yeah, we do. Well, and that's why your book.
Yes.
It's perfect. All right. I'm going to move a little bit more, because we already are starting to talk about emotions and how, say someone isn't totally unhappy, okay? And so they're feeling that emotion of unhappiness and they're saying they're unhappy. And can you talk a little bit how emotions will feed each other?
Yes.
Because that's important.
And again, such a great question. And that's one of the most challenging things I find in my professional practice with my patients. And so I love the languaging that comes from mindfulness. So to be able to use the mindful awareness of whatever, to acknowledge whatever it is that you're feeling in yourself.
Saying it's okay.
Yes, and
this is where I'm at right now.
To let yourself experience whatever it is that you're feeling.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's important.
People
always want to skip over that. But you have to feel it. You have to feel it to know where it is and to define even what you don't want to feel anymore.
We do, and it's one of the fundamental things that we struggle with as being human. We want to get away from our emotions especially when they're negative affective states or the negative feelings. We want to, we want to go to the gym. We want to go shopping.
Turn on the music.
We want to take a pill. We want to have a drink. Or maybe your doctor wants to give you a pill. And again, not to say that there are not times when that's appropriate.
Right.
But often we are trying to get away from our negative feelings.
Push them down.
And one of the great lessons is to be able to simply acknowledge whatever it is that you're feeling. Let yourself feel whatever you're feeling without judging yourself, without letting it be accompanied by shame, or grief,
or frustration,
forms of anger, irritability towards the self. So let yourself feel whatever it is that you're feeling. It's subtle, yet it's profound, because that is an act of self-love.
Yes, it is.
Self-acceptance.
Because it's giving you self-worth. Verifying that your feelings are important.
Yes, and to say yes to yourself every day in that way. Yes, this is what I'm feeling. I am feeling sad. I am feeling that life has been unkind to me. I'm feeling defeated. These were those, you asked me what I wrote on my sticky notes. So those were things. Yes, I felt inferior. I didn't have a nice place to live anymore.
Right.
I went to Goodwill to buy clothes for myself in an emergency. I picked up books from a sidewalk. I felt inferior.
Right.
And for me to admit that to myself, those kinds of things were really hard for me.
Yes, they were.
For someone like me.
Right.
Someone like me,
Yeah, yes, I know.
like me, and those are the things that we, face. Who is this person? My fundamental sense of self was altered.
Well, you were brought down to the basic, you know what I mean, of yourself.
I was. And that's exactly what I want to say, is that underneath the turbulence of all those feelings of shame, sadness, grief, self-loathing, underneath all that, we come to our essential nature.
Yes.
Right. What is good and what is pure in us.
That's right.
I've worked with patients from all over the world. I've had the privilege and pleasure of working in a number of different places, and people from different cultural backgrounds, different languages, different occupations in life. And people are good.
Yes, they are.
People are good.
I believe that.
My patients are good. And that's one of our fundamental, I would say it's a wound of the heart, where we fundamentally feel defective or inferior in some way. And it's a fundamental question that we face. Am I okay or not okay? It's really what we're struggling with. And
that's very true.
Am I a good person? Am I not a good person?
Yeah, I think that's a funny question, but yes.
And underneath, we get distracted by the turbulence. So a patient might come in, the ticket might be, well, I'm depressed, or I've got anxiety, or I've got a panic attack. Okay. But underneath all the turbulence of our, and so much of our life is spent dealing with that turbulence that we forget to let it settle down and just understand that our essential nature lies beneath that.
It does.
So, for example, in
That's right.
Buddhist languaging or metaphor would be an ocean, where the waves of the ocean, are what you see and experience on the top, but underneath, deep down, is this quiet
other world.
Mm-hmm. And we are like that. And so we have this changeless, boundless energy and sphere within ourselves. And that is our essential nature of goodness, and it's a beautiful place.
Beauty,
and
goodness,
it's pure, it's good.
Joy and love, yeah.
And so that's our self-love, where our self-love can lead us when we work towards that, and whether it's through therapy or coaching or whatever it is that we do, whatever kind of personal development we do, or a combination of things that we do. It could be yoga, it could be running. I love to run.
Yeah. I love yoga.
So whatever way, a combination of ways that lead us to that place.
You talk a little bit about mindfulness and meditation. Let's address affirmations, because you have a very interesting perspective on that I think the viewers really need to hear.
Sure. Well, lots of people ask me about that. Lots of patients ask me about how to use affirmations in their everyday life.
Right.
And again, it's not the realm of traditional psychiatry or therapy. But affirmations can be very useful if they're used in a mindful way.
Right.
I would say.
Okay.
So affirmation comes from the Latin word to affirm, to make yourself steady and stable.
Right.
So I love the concept of it in and of itself, and it can even become a meditation, a calming thought, or a centralizing
like a
thought.
Mantra.
It could be a central thought. Instead of using the word affirmation, you could think of it as a calming meditation, a grounding thought.
Okay.
Deepak uses it as a centering thought.
Okay.
So there's different ways to conceptualize it.
That's
Again,
true.
using your mindful awareness, think of how it can most impact your life. The affirmation is designed to get you from a state of pessimism or cynicism or some negative state into something more hopeful to move you forward.
Right.
Now, if you happen to find an affirmation that someone has created that really feels right to you, that's great.
Yes.
That's great. But I think most affirmations are most meaningful if you write them yourself. Tweak it for yourself, and you'll use it for a while and then revise it, because you're growing. So you want to be able to revise it and make it meaningful for you.
Now, why, other than just making it meaningful for you, you say write it yourself, make it, and can you get a little bit deeper with that? Why is that so important, rather than reading it out of a book and saying, okay, I resonate with that, I'll use that?
Yes, that's fine, and that's great. Personalizing it makes it more powerful. So again, I use the examples of those little pink sticky notes that I used to write. I sometimes would just write out words and put them up there. Later on, because we've learned so much about neuroplasticity now over the last 10 years, what I learned is I was naming it to tame it. So name it to tame it. So one of my favorite affirmations became, pressure is my partner in growth. Okay, so I was feeling stress, so I would write stress and I would slap it up there and I would say, okay, now I've named it, I've tamed it, I can get rid of that.
Yes.
So for me, pressure. So I translated that into, pressure is my partner in growth. The brain can't tell the difference between excitement and fear. So I also used it as a way to direct myself.
Right.
A way to tweak myself and to direct myself. Now,
into
your
something positive.
Yes. Now, an affirmation should irk you just a little bit, just enough, because you're going into something unknown.
Right.
And that unknown is uncomfortable for you. So you're directing yourself there. So you're moving yourself forward with a sense of purpose, balanced with compassion. So if the affirmation is too comforting for you, I don't think it's going to work. It's just a feel-good statement that makes you feel better or gives you permission to feel how you're feeling. I don't think that's the most effective or productive way to use it. So you want to craft it a little bit, tweak it a little bit, or make up your own. Maybe you do it with a friend or your therapist or your coach.
Right.
It could be anybody. But make it up, tweak it yourself. You'll know if it's working, and use it. And you'll know if it is promoting growth in you.
Fantastic. And a little bit, I love this, name it and tame it.
Name it and tame it.
I love this. And to take something that you want to change about yourself, or something that's affecting you, circumstantials, in your life, and to take that and then turn it into a positive, moving forward aspect to make you grow.
Absolutely.
I think that's fabulous.
And it's part of that everyday turbulence that, that keeps us kind of working there at ground level. We're struggling with our turbulent feelings in everyday life, that what Freud called everyday unhappiness. That's what it is. Angst, whatever you want to call it, but it keeps us down.
Yes,
it keeps us down and doesn't allow us.
It lulls
blanket.
us.
It does.
Doesn't it lull us?
It does.
There are some people that will choose to go back into that than to try to get out and be happy.
Yes.
Just because it's comfortable. We know it. It's going into that unknown.
So to also, again, going back to that point of saying yes every day, that these are normal human feelings and we all experience it. Everyone does. It doesn't matter how famous you are, how wealthy you are, how much status, how much power you have. We all have those fundamental feelings. And again, with that mindful awareness, just to say, I'm going to let myself feel whatever I'm feeling. I'm going to say yes to that emotion. Just because you say yes doesn't mean you're going to stay with it forever.
No, not
just because you're feeling low or down or defeated doesn't mean you're going to be there forever. It just is saying, I feel that right now, and I'm going to let myself feel it, and it will pass.
It will pass.
I will just tolerate it. I'll be patient with myself. That's another important thing too, is to be patient with the self, and to respect the self, to have self-regard, and that's a form of self-love as well.
It's a big self-love.
It's huge.
It really is huge.
Let it happen.
Let it happen. To understand it and allow yourself to feel it. Yeah,
it's part of that turbulence.
It is. It is.
It is. Yeah.
Well, and it's understanding. I always say you have to have the same compassion for yourself that you would have for another person.
Yes.
And we so often we don't. We expect ourselves to be superhuman, or not to put up that tough wall.
That's so great. And that was one thing I learned as a psychiatrist, because here I was dispensing empathy and compassion for my patients.
Right.
And I came to a point where I realized, I was lacking it for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it kind of hit me over the head when I started studying mindfulness, because self-compassion or compassion training is one of the ways in which we can achieve the neuroplastic changes in our brain to achieve durable happiness. And so it really, it made me think about the whole thing in a different way.
Now,
it made me really think that soft stuff is serious stuff.
Soft stuff is very serious.
Soft stuff is very serious stuff.
It is. In a lot of cultures, prayer is actually more used as a mantra in many, many cultures, which is a type of meditation.
Absolutely.
And so, still again, you're bringing it back to meditation.
Yes.
I
would say to that, the most important thing is that you have a meaningful philosophy of life. That also goes back to the issue of affirmation. Now, we could sit here and we could chant, we could do, we could say Om.
Yes,
Om.
we could.
And what I teach in my mindfulness and meditation class is that you have to do something that fits with you, what you feel is culturally appropriate. So yes, Om may be a wonderful, beautiful mantra, but if you're not coming from that culture, either you are going to embrace it or you're not. Okay? So other people would say Shalom.
Yes.
It depends on what feels right for you.
Right.
So you have to create that. That comes from your meaningful philosophy of life. And that's only something you can decide on. And then when you do, then within your toolbox, you'll have those things that are most powerful for you.
That makes so much sense, because when I was starting meditation, many times a lot of the mantras were, well, they were in different languages, and sometimes I couldn't even pronounce.
Yes.
And you're trying to get into the zone and you can't pronounce the mantra. That does not help you.
It doesn't help you. And so, there is that ancient Sanskrit one from Lord Ganesha, Om Gam Ganapataya Namaha.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Yes, see?
It's
wonderful.
difficult for a lot of people to say.
Yes.
And so if you can't say it, it's not going to be effective for you. So find something that's easy, that feels right for you, and say that. Herbert Benson, he started the Mind-Body Institute at Harvard years ago, and he taught patients how to do transcendental meditation. One. That was what he taught people. Just breathe in and out using one. If you don't want to use Om or Shalom,
right,
you can use the word joy.
Yes.
One. Whatever you want, but make sure it's meaningful to you and part of your overall life philosophy.
Mm-hmm. All right, now, Tina, for a person who is on that ground level, who isn't happy, who wants to do something to get higher, and knows it's there, but they have no idea how to get started, and they don't know how to leave this little zone, all right? What would you advise as the best way for them to get started, to find that hope and some kind of direction?
Such a great question.
Thank you.
I'm assuming that person knows that they're somewhat unhappy, and they may call it different things. It may go by different names.
Sure.
But what I really, or how I really interpret your question is one of desire.
Yes.
So when you kind of know something, you may not even be able to verbalize it, but I would say that's desire. It's what we call, it's a deep longing.
Yes.
It could be a quiet longing, or it could be a full out passion. So stay in touch with that desire. For many people, that's hard to do.
It is.
And we get depressed when we're as human beings, when we're out of touch with desire, we become apathetic as human beings. So it's really very fundamental to being human. It's also part of the reason why I wrote my book, as points of inspiration and deepening for people. Something might spark. So read books, talk to people. Different things will grab your attention in different ways. Keep yourself open. Keep your heart open.
Keep your heart open.
Keep your heart open.
That's big.
To your own desire.
Yes.
So desire is a really fascinating emotion, because it keeps you wanting to go forward, but it keeps you bound to your suffering at the same time.
Oh, now that's interesting.
Because, we try things over and over again, and we fail, we fall. It keeps us there at that kind of ground level. And in doing so, it keeps you suffering. But it also propels you forward, because you become creative and you try new things. So it does nudge you forward. I would say keep in touch with your desire. And to me, it's a meeting point between Eastern thought and Western thought. So if you're influenced by Eastern philosophy and spirituality like myself, then you've probably learned the way to deal with desire is to renounce it.
Okay.
And if you're influenced by Western thought, then you've been told to, watch yourself.
Watch yourself.
Control yourself. Watch your impulses.
Wow.
Control how you feel.
Yeah.
So the thing about desire is it's got so much energy behind it. It's an extremely powerful emotion, and that's why Napoleon Hill said that the starting point of all achievement is desire.
It is.
And you'll find different versions of that in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Bible. All sages and philosophers have talked about it in different ways. So stay in touch with your desire, and it's within that crucible, that feeling, that emotion, where you can transform yourself. You can harness the energy and transform yourself and liberate your mind through things like mindfulness, meditation, awareness.
That's right.
self-knowledge, self-power. And it's through that process where you can then move forward and achieve your goals or your state of contentment.
Well, I always think when I have a desire, it's like you feel the fire.
You feel a fire, totally.
You feel
That's
the
it.
fire.
That's it exactly. It's a fire.
And it's a fire. It's like, it's just, it gives you that
You know, it's that fire and
life.
And it's the thing, you know, as a psychiatrist, I would say people who have really big fires, we call them maybe hypomanic, or they're the ones that are out of control.
Oh, that go this way and this way, you mean?
Yes.
Yes.
You know, and when we don't have enough fire in us, we feel depressed. We feel
ground
down.
level or below.
Or burnt out.
Yeah.
Literally, we feel when it burns
Burnt
out.
out.
We feel a little bit of death in us.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's that life force.